Welcome back, Proppers. Today's project is a bonus video for our full samurai armor build. We'll be making the Waraji, or rope sandals. We'll also be creating the device to make the Waraji. The measurements are not critical. You can use the same configuration and customize it to your own personal preferences. To create the baseboard for my project, I'll be using 1/2-inch ply, and I'll be cutting it 24 inches long by 6 inches wide. For the top section of the unit that'll be used to stabilize the string while making the Waraji, I'll be using a piece of 3/4-inch ply, measuring 6 inches by 6 inches. 2 vertical slots are cut out from the top section of this piece to create 3 prongs. The only criteria for these slots are a minimum of 1/2 inch deep and 1/2 inch wide. Using my bandsaw with the dull blade, I make this straight cut look like a complicated stroll cut. For safety and comfort, all the edges are rounded over with my router. I'm marking out the area where the top piece will connect to the baseboard with a 3-inch setback from the edge. That measurement is also arbitrary. Pilot holes are drilled in the baseboard and the top section to prevent splitting. The holes on the bottom section of the baseboard are countersunk for the screws. Wood glue is used to help strengthen the connection. Inch and a quarter by 6-inch pieces of 1-inch pine are used for brace points on both sides of the upright piece. The bracing blocks are glued and screwed to both the baseboard and the upright piece. The edges of the baseboard are rounded over with the router. The screw holes as well as all imperfections are filled in with wood putty. After the wood putty is dried, the entire project is smoothed out with my orbital sander. Time for a quick pause to explain one thing about this project. You may have noticed that this 1.25 inch by 12-inch piece seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. I must have gotten distracted somewhere along this project and lost this video, or didn't take it at all. Well, anyway, These are foot braces for anyone creating their Waraji from a sitting position on the floor. This way you can feel more traditional while saving the pain and anguish for your big toes. I'll be creating my Waraji on a tabletop, so I won't be using that particular piece at this time, but I always like to keep my options open. To finish my project, I'll be using a mahogany stain sealed with beeswax. To preserve the wood grain look, I'm promptly wiping away the stain after it's applied. The bottom of my baseboard will get a non-slip material surface. With the tool completed and dried, it's time to start creating the Waraji. For my project, I'll be using 5mm jute rope. I'll be using two separate sections of rope. The first section is generally 2 full arm lengths of rope. If you have unusually short arms for your body type, you may have to put in more. If you have unusually long arms, it wouldn't make a difference, you'll just have a little extra. I seal off the ends with a little hot glue to keep them from fraying. The second section of rope is a little more complicated. The thinner the rope, the more you'll need. The thicker the rope, the less you'll need. In the end, I found out that I needed 5 full arm lengths for my 5mm jute rope. I started off with only 3 full arms length, but that's okay because that gave me an opportunity to show you how to add rope in the middle of the project. We start off by evenly folding the first section of roping, which is the shorter section. Then fold over the loop section toward the open end section. Separate the 2 loops evenly. The loop on the left is placed over the left and center prong. The loop on the right is placed over the right and center prong. Pulling the center of the loop section toward you determines the length of the Waraji. I'm using the Waraji that I've already created for a measurement. You would use the size of the foot for the person that you're creating it for. Once the measurement is determined, the loop section is tied off to the open end sections with a very strong twine or string. I'm using several passes and knots to make sure that it stays in place. After the knots are securely tied, the loose ends are cut off. The second larger section of roping will be used to make the weaving pattern. I start on the right side and make a under, over weaving pattern between the 4 pieces of rope. The weaving rope is stopped near the end of the last set rope. Then 3 fingers are used to spread the set rope while pulling the weaving rope back toward the end. This pattern is repeated over and over while holding the set rope tight and spread. To keep the pattern flat and consistent, the 3 fingers are held in place until all of the rope is fished through. Then the fingers are removed and that section of weaving rope is pulled taut and to the back. The pattern is then reversed and repeated. The size and contour of the Waraji can be controlled by spreading and contracting the space between your fingers. Although I'm not having any problem keeping the board in place while pulling tight on the roping, I could always clamp down the board to make it even more steadier. If I was doing this from a sitting position on the floor, I'd have the board between my legs and my feet pressed against the brace points. I prefer fishing the string through like this, but you could bunch it all up in your hands and pull it through en masse. When you completed a section of the looping approximately the size of your thumb, which is approximately the size of your big toe, the open end sections are fished through the top of the set ropes down the center. It's then flattened out and the weaving pattern is continued. Let's take this into overdrive. When you reach the approximate center of the Waraji, you continue the same weaving pattern, but you leave loose open loops on each end. You can then continue the pattern, tightly locking the loops in place. As I stated earlier in this video, since I was using the smaller 5mm rope, I underestimated the length of the rope I would need, but this gives me an opportunity to show you how you can weave in a new section of rope. The end of the rope is tucked into the weaving pattern, and a new section of roping is started off the same way you began the project. Remember to pull in the weave tight to seal off the loose ends. When you get to the very end, the loops are pulled off of the form. Each loop is folded over inwards, creating one circle, and then tied off at the base. The loop is then secured with the thin, strong twine or string that you have before the excess rope is cut off. I use a little bit of hot glue to seal off the end of the string to keep it from fraying. The part you've been looking at all this time is the bottom of the shear. So the Waraji is flipped over to the other side before fishing the 2 loose strings through the side loops. Both of the ropes are then fished through the back loop. That marks the end of this project. I'll do a little modeling for you, but you're going to have to excuse my large bunions. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press that like button, and press the bell notification so you'll be notified when each new video is uploaded. If you fail to do any of these things, I will take a life-size picture of my bunion, frame it, and send it to you. And as you can see, it's not a pretty sight.